At my 35th birthday dinner, my younger sister stood up. She smiled and announced she was pregnant with my husband's child. Family surrounded us. She sneered, thinking she'd finally won, that she had shattered my world completely. But she didn't know I had found her journal. Their disgusting little affair was on the first page. It wasn't the end of my story. It was the start of a cold, calculated plan to destroy me, and I was about to write the final chapter. My world wasn't always a stage for some Greek tragedy. Before the betrayal, it was quiet, comfortable. I was Harper, a name that felt as sturdy and reliable as I tried to be. I ran a small but successful architecture firm in New York City. I built this business from the ground up through hard work, late nights, and a lot of dedication. My life was a blueprint I followed with great attention to detail: career, marriage, and the promise of a family. My husband, Liam, was the cornerstone of that blueprint. We met in college, a classic tale of a business major falling for an artsy architecture student. He was charming, ambitious, and had a smile that could disarm a battalion. He was my rock, or so I thought. He held my hand during the tough early years of my business. He reminded me I was brilliant, even when I felt lost in self-doubt. Our marriage felt like one of my buildings, solid, well-proportioned, built to last. We lived in a lovely brownstone in Brooklyn. Our life was full of gallery openings, quiet dinners, and dreams of turning the top floor into a nursery one day. And then there was Chloe, my younger sister. Saying our parents favored her is like saying the sun is a bit warm. Chloe was the golden child. She was the light our family gathered around. While I was the responsible one, the serious one, Chloe was the spirited one. That's the word my mother always used. "Oh, Chloe is so spirited." Spirited meant she could wrap our father around her little finger to pay off her credit card debt. Spirited meant she could leave 3 universities because the vibe felt off. Our parents would nod and say she should find her passion. I discovered my passion in drafting rooms and on construction sites. Chloe found hers at the bottom of a mimosa glass in a trendy brunch spot. I loved her, of course, or at least I loved the idea of her, the sister she could have been. I was her confidant, her emergency contact, her financial safety net more times than I can count. When she'd call me, crying about some manufactured drama, I'd drop everything. When she needed a place to stay between boyfriends or apartments, our guest room was always ready. I played the part of the dutiful older sister, the stable one she could always rely on. Liam always seemed to play along. He'd sigh in fake annoyance when Chloe arrived without warning. Still, he always treated her with gentle affection. "That's Chloe," he'd say, ruffling her hair. I saw it as him supporting me, as him understanding the family dynamic I was saddled with. I never once thought his kindness was anything but a reflection of his love for me. Now that I reflect, I notice the signs I missed. The inside jokes and lingering glances seemed like family affection at the time. I was so blind, so wrapped up in the life I thought I had, that I couldn't see the termites eating away at the foundation. They were my husband and my sister, and they were building their future on the ruins of mine. The day it all blew up was my 35th birthday. It was supposed to be a celebration of milestones. My firm had landed its biggest contract, a boutique hotel in Soho. Liam and I had finally started talking seriously about trying for a baby. The future felt bright, tangible, and like a beautiful structure rising on the horizon. We were at my parents' house in Westchester. It was a big suburban home that often felt too quiet and too perfect. The dining room buzzed with familiar faces, my loving parents, some clueless aunts and uncles, and of course, Liam and Chloe. The air was thick with the scent of my mother's roast chicken and the low hum of polite conversation. I sat at the head of the table, Liam on my right, Chloe on my left. I remember feeling a genuine, uncomplicated happiness. I looked at my husband, handsome in his crisp blue shirt, and felt a surge of love. I looked at my sister, who had been quiet all evening, and felt a familiar sisterly concern. "A toast," my father announced, raising his glass. "To Harper, 35 years old and showing us all how it's done. A successful business, a wonderful husband, we are so proud of you." Everyone clinked their glasses. Liam leaned over and kissed my cheek. "Happy birthday, my love," he whispered. His lips were cold. As the plates were being cleared, Chloe stood up. She had a strange, triumphant gleam in her eye. I'd seen it before, right before she pulled a stunt I had to clean up. "I have an announcement to make," she said, her voice cutting through the chatter. The room fell silent. My mother beamed, probably expecting Chloe to announce she'd finally gotten a job. Chloe placed a hand on her stomach, a gesture so cliché it was almost comical. "Liam and I," she said, her eyes locking onto mine, "are going to have a baby." The silence that followed wasn't quiet. It was a physical thing, a heavy, suffocating blanket that smothered all the air in the room. I felt the blood drain from my face. My ears were ringing. I must have misheard. This was a joke. A sick, twisted, very Chloe kind of joke. I looked at Liam. His face was pale, his eyes wide with a pathetic kind of terror. He wouldn't meet my gaze. He stared down at his plate as if it held the answers to the universe. And in his silence, I found my answer. It wasn't a joke. My father dropped his fork. It clattered on his plate, the sound echoing like a gunshot in the dead quiet. My mother's smile froze, then crumbled. "Chloe, what are you saying?" she stammered. But Chloe wasn't looking at them. She fixed her gaze on me, a venomous, victorious smirk playing on her lips. "I'm saying," she enunciated with careful clarity, "that I'm pregnant with my sister's husband's child." My world didn't shatter. It imploded. All the happy memories, whispered promises, and shared dreams with Liam vanished in an instant, turning to ash. The future I had been so sure of moments before vanished. I glanced at my sister's sneering face and then at my husband's cowardly one. I felt nothing. A vast, cold emptiness that was terrifying. My birthday party had become the scene of my execution. The drive back to Brooklyn was dead silent. A thick, unbreachable wall of ice had formed between Liam and me. I stared out the window at the blurred lights of the city, each one a tiny pinprick in the vast darkness that had swallowed my life. What was there to say? He had confessed with his silence at the dinner table. Any words now would be noise. When we got to our brownstone, the home I had loved and carefully decorated felt like a stranger's house. Every object around me, the art on the walls, the books on the shelves, and the throw blanket on the sofa, mocked me. They showed a life that felt like a complete lie. Liam finally spoke, his voice cracking. "Harper, I can explain." "Can you?" I asked, my voice frighteningly calm. "Can you explain how you did this? How long? Was it a one-time thing, a mistake?" The questions emerged robotically, as if I were an investigator at a crime scene. It had happened," he stammered, running a hand through his hair. "It's been going on for a few months. I was going to tell you, I swear." Lies, all of it. The casual way he said, "a few months," as if discussing a passing hobby, sent a fresh wave of nausea through me. A few months of sneaking around. A few months of looking me in the eye while sleeping with my sister. A few months of living this disgusting double life. I walked past him and went upstairs to our bedroom. I needed to breathe, to be alone. He followed me, pleading. "Harper, please, we can work through this, I love you." "Get out," I said, the words like ice. "Get out of this house, now." He left. I stood in the middle of our room, the room where we had built our life together, and I finally broke. The sobs came in violent, gut-wrenching waves. It was a grief so profound it felt like a death. The death of my marriage, the death of my family, the death of the woman I used to be. The next few days were a blur. I called my lawyer. I called my office and told them I had a family emergency. I didn't answer the dozens of frantic calls from my parents or the pathetic, pleading texts from Liam. It was on the third day that I found it. Chloe, in her dramatic exit from my parents' house, had forgotten her handbag. My mother, in a desperate attempt to broker some kind of peace, had dropped it off at my front door. I kicked it into a corner, intending to throw it out. But something made me stop. Curiosity, maybe. Maybe it was the start of a cold, methodical anger. It would soon become my closest companion. I unzipped the bag and dumped its contents onto the floor. Lipstick, credit cards, keys, and a small, black leather journal. My heart started to pound. Chloe's diary. We had them as kids. Hers was always filled with dramatic, embellished accounts of her life. I hesitated for only a second. Did I have the right to read her private thoughts? I remembered her smug face as she destroyed my life and decided, yes, she had forfeited any right to privacy. I opened it. Her familiar, loopy handwriting filled the pages. I flipped to the most recent entries, and the world fell away again. October 12th. It's almost time. Liam is getting weak. He keeps talking about guilt and confessing. What an idiot, as if confessing will fix anything. He doesn't get it. This isn't about him, not really. It's about Harper. It's always been about Harper. Saint Harper with her perfect life, her perfect career, her perfect husband. She looks down on me. They all do. They think I'm a mess. Well, the mess is about to inherit the earth, or at least Harper's slice of it. My blood ran cold. This wasn't a whirlwind romance. This wasn't a mistake. This was calculated. My hands were shaking, but I kept reading. November 3rd. The plan is working perfectly. Liam moved another $20,000 to our nest egg account. He thinks it's for the baby. He's so easy. He doesn't know I've been using his login. I've been approving wire transfers from Harper's business account to a shell company I set up. Small amounts here and there. A few thousand every other week. She's so busy with her big new hotel project, she'll never notice. By the time she figures it out, we'll be long gone. And she'll be left with a failing business and a mountain of debt. Poetic, isn't it? I felt sick. The journal slipped out of my hands. It wasn't about stealing my husband. They were trying to ruin me, to destroy my company, the one thing that was mine, that I had built with my own 2 hands. The betrayal was so much deeper, so much more sinister than I could have imagined. I picked up the journal again. My grief was now crystallizing into something else, something hard, sharp, and dangerously clear. Rage. November 28th. Birthday dinner on Saturday. Harper's 35th. The perfect stage. I'm going to tell them, all of them. I want to see her face when her perfect little world burns to the ground. Liam is terrified, but he'll do what I say. He always does. He thinks this is our fresh start. He has no idea this is my final act. My revenge for a lifetime of being in her shadow. Soon, I'll be the one with the successful partner, the money, the family, and Harper will have nothing. I closed the journal. The crying had stopped. The numbness was gone. In its place was a chilling, absolute certainty. They saw me as a victim, the good girl who would eventually forgive them. They thought they could burn my world down and walk away. They were wrong. They had started a war. And I, Harper Brooks, was going to finish it. If you've ever been underestimated, if you've ever had someone try to tear you down, you know the feeling I had in that moment. It's a fire that can either consume you or forge you into something stronger. Let me know in the comments if you've ever had to fight back when the world thought you were defeated. And make sure you're subscribed, because you are not going to want to miss what happens next. The journal was the spark, but I knew it wasn't enough. Chloe's words were harsh, but some might see them as the drama of a troubled young woman. I needed cold, hard, irrefutable proof. I needed an arsenal. My grief sharpened into a laser focus. The architect in me took over. I wasn't designing a building, I was designing their downfall, and every detail had to be perfect. The foundation had to be solid. First, I secured my finances. I spent a whole night with my company's forensic accountant. At first, he was skeptical. Harper, our books are solid. I check them every month. Check again, I said, my voice flat. Look for small, irregular wire transfers to unknown vendors. Anything under $10,000 going back 6 months. It took him 4 hours. The color drained from his face. My God, Harper, he whispered. You were right. There are dozens. It's almost $100,000, all wired to something called Golden Future Enterprises. Chloe's Shell Corporation. I felt a grim satisfaction. Can you trace the IP address that authorized it? He typed furiously. It's Liam's laptop. The authorizations were all made from his device. Piece number 2 clicked into place. Liam hadn't cheated. He was an active participant in robbing me. His claims of guilt and love were nothing but a smokescreen. Next, I hired a private investigator. Her name was Evelyn. She was a former NYPD detective with sharp eyes that saw everything. I didn't tell her the whole story. I didn't need her sympathy. I needed her skills. I gave her the name of the Shell Corporation and photos of Chloe and Liam. I need to know everything, I told her, sliding a check across her desk. Bank accounts, assets, secret apartments, follow them, document everything. While Evelyn worked, I played the part of the grieving wife. I finally answered my parents' calls, my voice choked with fake sobs. I told them I was devastated, confused, and unable to think straight. They ate it up. Oh, Harper, darling, my mother cooed. I know this is hard, but Chloe is your sister. And there's a baby to think about. You need to find it in your heart to forgive. Forgive, the word was a hot poker in my gut, but I whimpered, I know, Mom, I'm trying. My performance bought me time. Liam, feeling bold from my weakness, began texting me. His messages were full of overly sweet apologies and hopes for reconciliation. He was trying to keep me docile until he and Chloe could make their final move. He had no idea I was watching his every step. Evelyn was worth every single penny. A week later, she delivered a thick file to my door. It was a complete chronicle of their sordid little life. There were photos of them meeting at a discreet hotel in the meatpacking district. Bank statements for the Nest Egg account show. Deposits from Liam. Withdrawals by Chloe for Chanel shopping sprees. And then, the crown jewel. Evelyn had found their secret, a luxury, furnished apartment in a new glass tower in Tribeca. It was leased under Chloe's name 3 months ago, paid for in cash for a full year. This wasn't a temporary affair. This was a meticulously planned new life, built with my money. The final piece came from Liam himself. In one of his pathetic, pleading voicemails, he said something that made my blood run cold. "Harper, I know you must hate me, but I was under so much pressure. The business, things haven't been going well. I made some bad investments. I saw a way out and I took it. It was wrong, I know, but I did it for us." He was trying to build a narrative, a story where he was a desperate husband who made a mistake trying to save us. He planned to blame the company's money problems on the market, not on his and Chloe's theft. He was going to bankrupt my company and paint himself as a tragic hero. I saved the voicemail. It was proof of his intent to defraud. I now have everything. The journal. The forensic accounting report. The PIES file. The lease. The recorded confession. I spread it all out on my dining room table, the same table where Liam and I used to eat. It was a mosaic of their treachery. The broken-hearted victim was gone. In her place stood an architect of justice. I had the blueprint for their destruction. Now, all I had to do was build. The perfect stage for the final act presented itself a month later. My parents wanted to keep up appearances, so they planned an informal engagement party for Chloe and Liam. It was their way of trying to smooth over the chasm in our family with champagne and canapés. They sent me an invitation. It was a lovely cream-colored card, like it was a happy event. The note from my mother at the bottom read, "Harper, please come. It's time for our family to heal." Heal? They were celebrating the demolition of my life and calling it healing. It was perfect. I spent the next few weeks preparing. I met with my lawyer and a prosecutor from the DA's office. I showed them my evidence. The prosecutor's eyes lit up. He agreed to have 2 plainclothes detectives on standby the night of the party. I also made copies, 5 leather-bound portfolios, one for my parents, one for Liam's parents, one for the senior partner at Liam's firm, one for a journalist I knew at the New York Times, and one for me. Each portfolio had a clear, tabbed summary of the evidence. It included wire transfers, bank statements, key parts of Chloe's journal, and photos of them at the hotel. Also, there was the lease for their love nest and a transcript of Liam's voicemail. The night of the party, I dressed carefully, not in black, the color of mourning, but in a striking, blood-red dress. I wanted to look powerful. I wanted to look like a woman they should have never crossed. I arrived late. The party was in full swing at my parents' house. The same dining room, now filled with people friends of the family, Liam's colleagues, all blissfully unaware. Liam and Chloe stood in the center of the room, holding hands. Chloe was glowing, her baby bump prominent. She looked smug, triumphant. She saw me walk in, and her smile faltered for a second before being replaced by a look of pitying condescension. My father caught me at the door. "Harper, you came. I'm so glad you're being the bigger person." "I'm not here to be the bigger person, Dad," I said, my voice calm and clear. "I'm here for the truth." I walked to the center of the room, briefcase in hand. Every eye was on me. The music faded. I smiled, a wide, predatory smile that didn't reach my eyes. "Don't stop on my account," I said. "I wouldn't want to interrupt such a momentous occasion. I've brought gifts." I opened my briefcase and took out the portfolios. I handed the first one to my stunned parents. I walked over to Liam's equally shocked parents and gave them theirs. I found Liam's boss, a man named Mr. Harrison, by the fireplace and handed him his copy. "What is this?" my mother asked, her hand trembling as she opened the portfolio. "It's a story," I said, my voice ringing through the silent room. "A story about love, family, and betrayal. You all think this is a celebration of a new family. It's not. It's the celebration of a crime. I let that hang in the air. Chloe's face had gone white. Liam looked like he was about to be sick. For the last 6 months, I continued, while my husband was telling me he loved me, he was having an affair with my sister. But it was more than that. It wasn't a mistake. It was a cold, calculated plan to ruin me. I turned to Mr. Harrison. In that portfolio, you'll see proof that your top employee, Liam, has been stealing from my company. Almost $100,000 went into a shell company created by Chloe. He used his company laptop to do it. I believe that it violates his contract, not to mention several laws. Mr. Harrison's face hardened as he flipped through the pages. I then turned to my parents. You'll read my sister's words from her journal. She wrote about how she planned to seduce my husband, drain my finances, and leave me with nothing. All because she was tired of living in my shadow. My mother started to weep. My father stared, his face mottled red. Chloe finally found her voice. She's lying, she's making it all up, she's just jealous. Am I asked softly. I pulled out my phone, connected it to a small speaker I'd brought, and played Liam's voicemail. His pathetic, whining voice filled the room. I made some bad investments. I saw a way out and I took it, I did it for us. The silence was absolute, the final nail. The two of you didn't break my heart, I said, my voice dangerously low. You tried to destroy my life's work. You conspired to commit fraud. You are thieves, and you are criminals. Then the two plainclothes detectives moved from the back of the room. Their badges were now in view. Liam O'Connell, Chloe Brooks, you need to come with us. Chaos erupted. Chloe started screaming. Liam crumpled, looking like a broken doll. As the detectives led them away, past the shocked faces of their friends and family, I felt nothing. The cold, quiet satisfaction of a project completed. I had designed their downfall, and the execution was flawless. The fallout was immediate and disastrous, as I had planned. The story appeared in the New York Times the next day, thanks to the portfolio I sent to the journalist. Manhattan architect defrauded by husband and sister, the headline read. Someone destroyed its reputation. Liam's firm fired him and sued him. Faced with overwhelming evidence, both he and Chloe took plea deals. A court convicted Liam of grand larceny and conspiracy to commit fraud. The court convicted Chloe of conspiracy. Due to her pregnancy, she got a lighter sentence, probation. The court sentenced Liam to 2 to 4 years in state prison. Their relationship, built on greed, crumbled under the weight of criminal convictions. I heard they spent their final days of freedom blaming each other. My parents broke up. They tried to apologize, but their words were hollow. They chose to enable a predator over protecting their daughter. Their desire for a neat, pretty family picture was more important than my reality. I told them I didn't hate them, I had nothing left for them. Someone cut the connection. I haven't spoken to them since. For me, the months that followed were about rebuilding. I sold the brownstone, a place now tainted by too many ghosts. I moved into a sleek, modern apartment in a building I'd helped design, a place with clean lines and no memories. The business, which had been on the brink of ruin, flourished. Ironically, the publicity from the case brought in a wave of new clients. The majority of women. They saw my story not as one of a victim, but as one of strength. I reclaimed my name, not as the wronged wife, but as Harper Brooks, the architect. There are scars, of course. Trust is now harder to establish than it was in the past. I now approach the idea of family with caution. I lost my husband, my sister, and my parents all at once. Some nights, the weight of that loss still leaves me breathless. But then I wake up in my apartment, look out at the city skyline that I helped shape, and I feel a sense of peace. It's a hard-won peace, forged in the fire of an unimaginable betrayal, but it's mine. They tried to write my ending for me, to cast me as the tragic figure in their greedy little story. But I took the pen back. I wrote my final chapter. It's a story of survival, of justice, and of the quiet strength you can find in the ruins. They left me with nothing, but in the end, I found I had everything I needed. Myself. My story is proof that you can rebuild from the ashes, stronger than before. It's about taking back control when others try to write your narrative for you. Thank you for listening. If you liked my story, please hit the like button. Also, subscribe for more stories of resilience and justice. And remember, no matter how dark it gets, you always have the power to write your ending.